Good morning, Brad Washa, one of the Ops Section Chiefs with the Alaska Incident Management Team on the Aspen Acres Fire for July 7th. We're starting to see some progress on this fire on a number of fronts, although the fire still remains very dynamic, and we're still having to look at some areas of the fire, and this isn't a short-term event. It is going to be a long-term event, so we do need to look at that. For today, one of the things that we're encouraged by is the weather forecast, and we actually have two incident meteorologists from the National Weather Service with us in our incident command post that help us with looking at that forecast, along with a fire behavior analyst that also helps us look at the fire behavior and making forecasts for that. And the encouraging thing on the forecast is we do have today through the next couple of days that the forecast calls for scattered to numerous thunderstorms today. That can be a positive thing as far as the fire behavior itself and knocking down the fire behavior. The one concern, again, we've talked about outflow winds and dry lightning. We're hoping these are going to be wet thunderstorms, but a major concern is the potential for flooding events, especially if we get significant precipitation and that precipitation falls really fast. When we look at the effect of precipitation on the fuels, again, we're coming into the season with a very low snowpack. So with that, it's going to take a long duration type precipitation event to really change things up fire behavior wise. And the other thing is, we've got 3 days or so of a little bit more moisture, but then going into this weekend, and the longer range forecast calls for hot and dry conditions, and those monsoonal flows really haven't set up. So with that, we are encouraged about that to kind of give us a couple days to maybe be a little more direct on this fire than we were looking at a couple days ago. And with that, let's go around and look at the fire for today and what we experienced yesterday. Our main focus is going to be this northern part of the fire up by Greenwood and Wetmore. We had a little bit of activity the last 3 days in that area. Yesterday we were using a lot of retardant and going in there and hitting that pretty hard. You do see we do have dozer line beyond the fire, and then along the fire's edge down in the Greenwood area. We have also been doing some structure protection and putting in sprinkler systems on some of those homes that are at greater risk in the Greenwood area. So that is our priority for today. And again, with those increased moisture, we're hoping to have a little bit better opportunity to go in there and try to go direct. Extending out here in the northeast part of the fire, continuing to work those hot spots in there, but they're feeling pretty comfortable about that. Coming around the horn, this area right in here is our next area of focus, and there has been some heat in there, and we're getting in there and mopping up, but we're starting to feel a little more comfortable with that and keeping that checked. In Beulah, we continue to have a presence in there. There's still little pockets of heat, and we don't want anything to as far as losing any homes in there because of having a little bit of heat that we didn't catch. So continue to have a presence in there. You can start to see containment on the fire. I didn't look at the percentage this morning as far as what the percentage is. We're probably right around 15% or so. And we continue to put a little bit more line. Last night when we were debriefing with the divisions, we have a division trainee. I mean, he's got a fully qualified division, but the trainee was on the map and he started putting black along here. We started saying, well, that containment line is not only just to make sure that the fire is checked from going out, but we've also got a lot of structures in here, and we want to make sure that those structures are protected. So we did not put containment down here, but feeling good as far as movement of fire outside the fire. But again, we do have a lot of structures in the black that we need to make sure that there's no heat sources around those. So we are putting a lot of attention in that area. Talked about before, was kind of this whack-a-mole type response to, heat here, heat there. And again, we're going in here systematically gridding this. As we come down towards Rye, we've got a couple little horseshoes that we're putting dozer line around. Might be doing a little bit of burnout to kind of connect things in that area, but that is looking really good. Now we get beyond Rye, and that's the big question as far as the long-term plans for this fire. If we get moisture and have the opportunities, we are looking at trying to go direct as much as possible. Above the Jackson Camp area, we we have fire on the west side of the 165 road, west and south side of 165. Flew that yesterday, and that, especially this this northern perimeter, that is in some really rocky terrain, and it's an area we don't really want to put firefighters. Yesterday we had two what we call yellow IWIs, incident within an incident, where we had firefighters go down and we had to get them to the hospital. We don't want to put firefighters in an area where we feel we're putting them at risk, where they could get injured or even worse. So that's probably not an option. But on the side towards Rye, we do have dozers going up the drainage here, and we're pretty happy with that. We're not necessarily going to be able to burn off that line, but it's intended as a checking measure to hold the fire. And again, if we do get moisture, we'll look at if we've got some other alternatives. Going beyond that, we are looking big picture wise as far as where can we catch this fire. And we have looked at options of trying to go on the forest. I believe it's the 360, 369 road, and trying to open that up. To open that up, it's going to be basically requiring a logging type operation. That would be almost a 2-week event. With that though, we don't feel like there's a lot of probability of success for that, because there's a lot of forest health issues. There's a lot of standing dead and down material. And even if we were able to get line in there and try to burn off that line, high probability of spotting outside of where we're burning, and then we'd be off the races again. So we have looked at increasing a big picture. The forest does not want us going into the wilderness area. Again, a high hazard for snags. So we are looking at coming around the toe of the wilderness area and coming out where it kind of flattens up, and coming around as much as possible, staying on the forest. But in some cases, we will be going on some private lands. So we actually have started that by Rye. And our big concern is a wind event pushing it towards Rye, and we'd be back in the same situation we were a couple weeks ago. So we are starting to put dozer line in here, and we will be doing additional work as we bring that along. On the on the west side from the 165 road, we're looking at options to kind of connect in, try to keep the keep the dozer line and the extent of the spread as little as possible on the private land, but there will be a little bit on the private land, but trying to stay on the forest. And again, that transition between forested type vegetation where it flattens out and where we feel our probability of success would be a lot greater. And so that's our big picture and what we're looking at. Oh, let me come back up here. Also here we're looking at, there's a number of old fire scars in here, and we've got a lot of folks that have come around that have a lot of history in this area that have told us, well, we had a dozer line in this area. This would be a good place to reestablish that dozer line. It held for the Junkins fire, there's an oak something fire in here also. So we are looking at reestablishing those dozer lines that were successful for those fires, and using those to hold the Aspen Acres fire. So again, today, big picture wise, we're watching the weather, and hopefully the next couple of days we'll have moderating weather that's going to help us with our containment efforts. And that concludes today's Aspen Acres update from operations.